Jessa, would you mind introducing yourself and telling the audience a little bit more about you, your background, and what you're currently doing, please?
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for having me. My name is Jessa Barnes. I am in Richmond, Virginia, over in the United States. I've been at UDIG for almost 5 years, currently in the practice lead for the intelligent automation team. So meaning I oversee the business development, customer accounts, and delivery activities of the team and ensuring the overall success. When I'm doing the hands-on work, which I love to do, I focus primarily on process analysis, discovery, and process candidate identification. So helping find those good automation candidates. My career has primarily been in business analyst and project management work, but I had some early experience with RPA at a previous job, helping them start their journey. So I was exposed to RPA a good bit ago, but just recently in the last 5 years got back into it. And just to add a little bit about UDIG as well, if you don't mind, we're a 22-year-old technology consulting company, and we focus on delivering software engineering, data analytics, and intelligent automation services. So we got a lot covered.
The full remit. Well, recently I found you online, as you do these days, and you helped co-author a white paper on RPA in the higher education industry with the Virginia Academic Community of Practice, the COP. Would you mind telling us a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So first, the mission of the Virginia Academic Community of Practice is to bring awareness and education to the higher education sector about intelligent automation and how it can help them be more effective and efficient. I think also kind of a byproduct of that, it exposes students to another potential career path. I think more universities are getting on board with RPA in a curriculum, still growing. It's not as big out there as I think it should be. So I think it also exposes them to another potential career path just as a byproduct of it. The white paper I co-authored with them was really meant to help higher education start thinking about ways intelligent automation could be applied to them. So mentioning use cases that may not have been thought of, whether directly affecting the students or more of back office activities. We find a lot of organizations that we work with start in back office, finance, accounting use cases because they show value the quickest. So use cases such as student enrollment, payroll management, invoicing, grading support, financial aid services, student transcripts, anything that's repetitive, rules-based, tedious, manually, done the same way every time are really great candidates. After getting the reader thinking about use cases, the next section is really to go into what makes a good process candidate for automation. So all the things I just kind of touched on, and then also characteristics of some processes that are not worth automating. And then finally, we talk about what's next. What are the benefits you could see from implementing intelligent automation and the pros and cons of using third-party providers to help you implement intelligent automation? I think a lot of organizations also struggle with, do we start in-house or bring in experts? So kind of helping make that decision. We really wanted to create awareness and create something that was easy to read and understand, as well as providing as much value as we could to help explain how intelligent automation could positively impact their organization.
Do higher education or colleges or universities struggle to actually understand RPA and IA? Or is it more that they struggle to build the business case for it, or is it both?
I think it's both. I think, more than just education fall into this category as well. I think for those that have had little to no exposure to intelligent automation, it can be hard to understand and grasp the concept of what intelligent automation is and what it can do. You've been in the industry a while. I'm sure you've heard this before, but there are originally so many jokes and misconceptions about people thinking a robot was going to be walking around their office or it was going to eliminate their jobs. That's why initiatives like the Virginia Academic COP and so many others out there are passionate about education, helping those with little exposure understand the true value of implementing intelligent automation at their organization. And that's not going to eliminate their jobs. It's going to make their lives easier. At UDIG, when we talk to a potential clients, we get a lot of skepticism because, like I said, it's hard to grasp. So once we're able to prove value or show them the value of what automation could potentially provide, that's when people want more. We really see that people need to see it to believe it. But then on the flip side, with the business case, like you mentioned, some of the tools out there can be pricey. And I think initial reactions are that it's too expensive to invest in. I think, again, back to it's hard to grasp. It's if you're implementing an ERP or Salesforce, you know what you're getting, you know what you're doing. It's not always the same when you're investing in an automation tool. So one thing we like to say is think about the cost of a full-time employee doing this repetitive task versus what you could pay to have an automation run and do it for you. So we call them digital workers. They don't take breaks, they don't take PTO, they can work 24/7, higher level of accuracy, and potentially handle more than one process. So that right there should show some value. So you have quantitative benefits like time saved, new revenue generated, reduction errors, but then you also have the qualitative benefits like increased employee satisfaction and allowing for humans to focus on more value-added activities to the organization. One thing we've done at UDIG, just a little shameless plug, we heard that people are having trouble calculating ROI for RPA initiatives. So we created a calculator. So you just put in like 5 to 6 inputs and we'll give you an output of estimated cost and savings that could be realized over 5 years. But yes, to answer your question, yes, I think education's struggling to understand intelligent automation and the potential value the investment in the tools can bring. And I think it's just lack of education out there focusing on these industries. I definitely see it growing, but I think that's kind of where the issue is, just lack of education.
How do you start that journey then to move from zero knowledge to allowing you to potentially build something in a POC or POV or actually just get started?
Yeah, so we find we're working with 2 spectrums of organizations. So ones that have already started their journey and they need help with either they have resource constraints, creating a backlog of ideas, or they want some help with best practices. And then on the other side, we have people that know they're interested, but they don't understand it or know where to start. So the ones that have a program and just need some help, we can help with best practices, governance, getting their code efficient, the same thing you would do with software engineering in your normal life cycle there, making sure best practices and governance are implemented. But then those that need help really starting, we typically start with some education. So we'll do an intelligent 101 session, automation 101 session if needed, just to explain the basics, what makes a good versus bad candidate, what's an unattended versus attended automation, things like that, just so they have a baseline understanding. What we like to do from there is spending time with a process owner or a department and really understanding their processes. We like to become as knowledgeable as we can so we can speak to it appropriately. From there, we take processes and generate level of efforts and priority ranking, and then helping them pick the tool they want to use if they haven't selected one. From there, we help them with everything, getting the infrastructure set up, getting the licenses they need. In our process, we document the current state so they have that output, document the future state. And anything to make them kind of work along the way. We want to make sure we're working strategically. We really pride ourselves on the trust and relationship we build. So making sure they're heavily involved and that we're thinking strategically about their automation journey and the processes that we're automating. We like to say we leave you better because we want to make sure our clients are left in a better spot than they were before. We don't want anyone to feel like they have to rely on us, but we're giving them the tools to be self-sufficient.
What prevents the education or private sectors from successfully implementing and then scaling automation programs? The technology works wonders. So is it knowledge? Is it sustainability, affordability, or what stops the scaling happening?
In my opinion, I think it comes to a few things. I think number one is resource availability. RP is definitely a different skill set than your typical software engineering teams. And unfortunately, not everyone wants to go down that path, just like people might not want to go down the software engineering path. So the result is if you can't find someone in the organization to do it, you'll have to hire unless you use an outside third party. And if and when your program starts to scale, you're going to have to scale appropriately. So you'll continue to have that resource constraint. Second, I think buy-in. Like I mentioned earlier, implementing a new technology takes a certain amount of buy-in from decision makers to get budget and approval. However, you also need buy-in from all levels to make automation programs successful. If you don't get it from everyone, there's going to be a gap somewhere that will cause implementation to not be successful. If you don't have buy-in from leadership, that doesn't necessarily encourage those below to believe in it and buy in. So I think that's very important. And the last thing I'll mention is change management. That one's probably nearest to my heart and one I think has one of the biggest impacts on a successful automation implementation. It's one thing to automate a process and automate the next and automate the next. It's another thing to communicate what's being done to the business and keeping them involved, getting them to understand and trust what you're doing. I've worked with organizations in the past that have rolled out these automations that should have been a no-brainer, saves tons of time and money. But because it wasn't rolled out and communicated appropriately to the business, the process owners didn't trust it and continued doing their manual task like the automation didn't exist. So now you didn't just automate a process, you automated a process and it's still being done manually. So now it's being done twice. And unfortunately, the process owner is now relying on the manual process because they're doing that work. So I think communication and change management are huge to get buy-in and trust from the business.
You're obviously passionate, Jess, about RPA and intelligent automation. If you had a magic wand, what would you do to the industry, or what would you do to the education sector with RPA and intelligent automation?
I think there's so much opportunity in the education sector, and I'll even go out to public sector too, just to evolve digitally. Even more than just automation. I think website upgrades, online offerings, and efficiency gains like automation. I think what they need is being able to work more nimble and work more quickly, which I think is where the struggle is right now with these sectors. In my opinion, there's so much approval and buy-in and red tape. It's hard to keep things moving quickly. I think if that problem can be resolved, we would see so much more digital advancement and at a much faster pace. I think of all the forms you fill out when it comes to education or the public sector. I mean, all those can be digitized and used with intelligent automation. I think, that alone is a huge use case. Yeah, I think that would be the biggest thing, is focus on the digital paper, the digitization of papers. I work with a few clients that there's so much paper. If they would just start processing it through intelligent automation, it would make their lives so much easier.
Jess, if people wanted to find out a little bit more about you, the work that you do, and all the research paper as well, how would they best go about that?
I think the best place is probably LinkedIn. Finding me, Jessa Barnes, on LinkedIn. I usually tend to post and repost everything that's out there that I've written or that I've spoken on. I think that's probably the best place, or my email's jessa.barnes@udig.com.